Hello there, I'm Vigalius, and God, what a breathtaking game. What a game, Alan Wake 2. And before we start this, I just want to throw a couple of qualifiers out for this video. Firstly, I just want to say, if you're watching the footage for this, I'm never going to be able to do this game justice with the footage that I use for a few reasons. I mean, firstly, you're never going to experience like the full experience of the game through just one of those little windows in what is quite frankly a very poor resolution. But also, I have to choose footage that isn't like this is quite possibly the most like narratively driven game of its type that I've ever played, and I'm just not going to be able to show you the best stuff without spoiling a bunch of stuff. So it's mostly just like combat stuff and things like that, and cool environments. So you're not going to get the full impact of the game here. Secondly, I know that I just put a video out saying that The Remnant 2 was my game of the year for 2023, and in that video I said I just want to confirm, for all intents and purposes, I said I want to confirm that Remnant 2 is now my game of the year and not Dead Space Remake. No, don't believe a word I say. It's Alan Wake 2. It's Alan Wake 2. I just played it, and so. I love Remnant 2 to death, I really do, but Alan Wake 2, man, it's just on another level. It's such a fantastic game. So, moral of the story is, don't believe a word I say. Never do. Don't do that. We're going to talk about Alan Wake 2 today, because it's amazing. It's such a fantastic game, and it's hard to, articulate just why it's so great, because overall it's just an experience. Like, from beginning to end, it's just such a visceral, beautiful, fantastic experience to go through, and I would absolutely recommend it to anyone as an experience. As an visual experience, it's just so fantastic. But the game itself is such a huge leap from Alan Wake 1 that it almost feels disconnected from the game, despite the fact that it actually kind of picks up straight after Alan Wake 1. It really feels disconnected. Every mechanic is different and obviously improved in every way. It's a much better looking game. It's one of the best looking games on console right now, and it's not some silly sparse open world where nothing happens. This is semi-open world, semi-linear, and it makes the most of it for sure. It is a stunning looking game. But essentially the game is split between two different characters. I will warn you going in. You play as Saga Anderson and Alan Wake 2, you play as. Split between these two convergent paths. And what I really like about this is that with what Remedy have done here is they've taken the two best parts of Alan Wake 1, the two most effective parts of the game as a horror game, and they've split it into two parts and then encapsulated both of those aspects into a more condensed and focused part. So the two most effective parts of Alan Wake 2 was the psychological stuff, where they kind of played around with the gameplay and the visuals themselves, and the sort of Twin Peaksy, uncanny valley creepiness of the location that they're in. And that's what they've done with this game. In Alan Wake 2, with when you play as Alan Wake, you're in the psychological horror stuff where nothing makes sense and you're trying to just figure out what's going on in your mind. And with the Saga stuff, it's so creepy. No one makes sense and everyone's kind of weird and you suspect everyone and there's always something in the corner of your eye. And they nailed both parts tenfold. And the crazy thing about this game is that it's not turned up to 11. This game is turned up to 1 billion. And when I say turned up, I mean it's just insane. The game is crazy. The visuals go absolutely nuts when you're in Alan Wake's head. And not just that, the colors are just so vibrant, so popping. Everything is going on around you. It's so intense, but the visuals constantly change. And there's something very impressive that they do with the storyboard, and the fact that you can go into the writing process of the story that Alan's writing in his head, and you can entirely change the environment that you're in, obstacles as well, and all of that, and it's actually used for some interesting puzzly moments where you can shift light and change the scene in order to get around a blockade. And it does it so effectively with the visuals that you go from one crazy visual that looks stunning and is tripping with your head to another one, and it has this really cool story beat moments where if you find these parts in the world and look at them correctly, kind of like that game where the voices are in a head. It begins with S, I can't remember. They're making another one soon, but yeah, if you find one of those, then all of these cool visuals happen around you with all of this storytelling, and it's done in such a beautiful, evocative way. I can't even describe how great it is. And there's this overall great noir thriller vibe to it, but like you go through this hotel and there's blood on the walls, and then you go through a door and they're gone, and it's like, but I'm looping around, but it's changing and it's shifting, and it's so fantastic. But speaking of beautiful, I mean, when you play as Saga, you know, you're trapped out in this creepy world full of people who say like, you know, they're like, hey, neighboroonie, you know, it's just all this weird Ned Flanders shit. And the game itself, again, there is absolutely stunning, but like, you might hear a wolf in the corner of your ear, and you're like, was that a wolf? Was that someone doing like an impression of a wolf? Or, you know, and all of this weird stuff. Or you might encounter a character who's in a really weird place, who why are you standing like in front of this bush or whatever? And then he speaks and he's like, oh, hey, Saga, what's up? I babysat for your kid one day, you know. And it's just, but obviously there's some narrative stuff going on there that I can't really explain, but it's just so off-putting in the best way, in the most interesting way. And the way these two stories converge, it's absolutely fantastic. I love the writing in this game. Absolutely love the writing, the like converging writing. Every narrative beat feels like an overlap that overlaps over the other, and then there's this like moment in the middle, and it's just excellent. Absolutely love the writing. It's very meta, obviously very on the nose. They do some great, awesome parts with how meta the game becomes. I think I'm actually going to put some footage in here where the game just straight up becomes a musical, but it sounds goofy. It's fucking awesome. It's such a left field tremendous moment, and that's the thing, because you don't, like, everything is like so off and uneasy with you, you know. It doesn't just feel goofy and campy. It's like, what's going on, what's happening here? And it's so intriguing. It just, you know, stays so intriguing. Speaking of that section, David Harewood is in this game, puts on an absolutely fantastic performance. Yeah, and they really play around with the narrative like that. There are a few other bits that I think are cool too, like when you there are like detective-y moments. Because, you know, Saga Anderson is a detective, and they have this like mind palace. And listen, okay, you have to construct a board of clues, and usually I hate this type of shit, but there's something about the way that they present, so impressive. There's something about the way that Remedy presented putting clues on the board, that whilst feeling like very engaging and as though you're doing it, and there's a really fantastic sense that like you're building towards something bigger. I don't know how they did that, but I really do. I'm like, oh, another clue. I'm going to put that on the board and see, you know, what I have now. They managed to do that without it feeling overwhelming and like, oh my god, do I have to sit here looking at this board? I look forward to going to the board and adding clues to it, like, oh, where does this go? Oh, what does this mean? You know, where do we go with this? And then there's like these great interrogation moments. Well, not interrogation moments, but they're like these profiling moments. That's it, where you sit there and you like piece together what someone told you and what it would actually mean. It's like a subtext moment. You try to figure out the subtext of what they were saying. And because all of these characters are so creepy and weird and say stuff that you wouldn't expect them to say, getting to like the core of what they actually meant is just, it's great. So this game is fantastic. It's absolutely brilliant. I'm just scratching the surface with what I'm telling you, but the psychological thriller stuff is so engaging and so intense and over the top. When they flash text on the screen, it hits you like a bullet to the chest. The soundtrack is so over the top and intense. The stuff that people do and say is just so over the top at times, and it absolutely works. I would definitely say if you are going to play this game, play it with headphones. If you can, like in, you know, with a big screen, and really get immersed in there, because you need to get immersed in this game in order for it to be as effective as possible. When you see a ghost going, "Wake, where are you, Wake? This is my story, Wake," and stuff like, it's mesmerizing. It's such an engrossing experience. It's terrifying at times. It's a very scary game, but Remedy absolutely nailed it with this one. It's an absolutely tremendous game, and I would say Alan Wake 2 is a masterpiece. Would I recommend it? Don't be ridiculous. Of course I would recommend it. You need to play Alan Wake 2. It is incredible. And thank you very much for watching.
The PlayStation is only $149, and you can also get leading titles.